there's some choice matchups and a lot of upset possibilities. Good afternoon.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Paul. Everyone's talking this offseason about Georgia's cakewalk schedule and how the Bulldogs are going to just show up and go ahead and scribble in with Sharpie, Georgia 12-0, making the SEC championship again. I think there's a few games on Georgia's schedule where upsets could happen, maybe some worry. They go to Auburn in week 4, I think it is. That's going to be the first true road game for a lot of these first-year starters. Kirby Smart has quarterback Carson Beck, hostile environment on the Plains. So you just never know. But Georgia's going to be favored like we've seen all off season and likely every game. Obviously, the Tennessee road trip in November is the biggest game on the schedule. And with the win total at 11.5 right now, it's probably safe to go over on Georgia. But like I said, there's a couple games where I think Kirby Smart's going to have to prepare a little bit extra in order to win.
You've got some other really interesting matchups. One that stood out to me was October 7th, LSU at Missouri. I think that game went Missouri's way a couple of years ago. And, for all the talk about LSU winning the West, they're going to have to survive Alabama later in the year. But Missouri, you obviously look at very early in the season. Why?
Yeah, a lot of starters back on that defense for Eli Drinkwitz. I think a lot of times last season, Missouri kind of hung around in games against ranked teams because of that defense. Nearly knocked off Georgia in Columbia. Here's another opportunity for Missouri to host a top 10 SEC opponent at home and potentially win. And like I said, this is a team that almost got over the hump last season with better quarterback play this fall. Maybe it happens for Eli Drinkwitz. LSU needs to play well in this game in order to win at Missouri.
You've got two games on the 16th. Carolina at Georgia. We saw that years ago. Will Muschamp pulled that upset. Not happening this time. I'll go ahead and answer your question. But the one that I'm really interested in is Tennessee at Florida. It's a game more than likely the Gators are going to lose on the road to Utah. Tennessee riding high after that big win last year over Florida and almost everyone else but Georgia. What intrigues you about this game at the Swamp?
Yeah. Part of the reason the Gamecocks won that game in Athens a couple of years ago was Jake Fromm had 4 turnovers in that game. Just a shocking display of ineptitude from a really good quarterback. Look, Tennessee and Florida is a top game this season because Tennessee hasn't won in the Swamp since 2003. I was in high school, Paul, and Florida was still nationally relevant right before the Tebow multiple titles and Urban Meyer year. So I saw the Gators preseason win total last week at 5.5. This is going to be a bottom dweller in the SEC according to odds makers. So it's a game Tennessee has to have if Josh Heupel wants to keep building this momentum from last year's top 10 finish.
Wow, 2003. I hadn't even gotten my AARP card yet, so it was a long time ago. Southern Cal, nobody wants to believe in them because of the defense. Do you think they're going to show back up?
I think Caleb Williams has to have a 45 touchdown pass, 4,500-yard season. Lincoln Riley has one of the best transfer portal classes in college football, has done that for a second straight year. But you mentioned in your opening, Paul, that the Pac-12 might be college football's third best conference. And Southern Cal, you see the schedule there, has several tough games. That game at Colorado is going to be an easy one. The first half of that schedule is easy, but then you go to Notre Dame. Then you host Utah, who trounced USC last year in the Pac-12 title game. Washington, Oregon, UCLA to end the season. So several top 15, top 20 matchups for Lincoln Riley this year. But I do think USC is a team that should be on that national championship shortlist because of Caleb Williams coming back.
Call me a Nick Saban acolyte, but I want to believe, in spite of all the criticism that Saban's going to prove everyone wrong, but you remind me of why I haven't said that out loud. The quarterback play. What's going on there?
Yeah, man, it's kind of surprising to me that this is the first time in Saban's tenure where we've sort of seen him scramble under center coming out of spring practice. He didn't like what Ty Simpson had to offer. Jalen Miro didn't show enough on the A-Day game to appease that offensive staff. So Tommy Rees into the portal, got Tyler Buckner from Notre Dame. I'm not even sure Tyler Buckner is going to be QB1 by the time this is all hashed out, but obviously Bama did not feel good about its situation. There's stars all over the field, but if Bama does, finish 11-1, maybe get to Atlanta and play Georgia in that SC championship game, they're going to have elite quarterback play. And what they're going to miss most about Bryce Young this fall is escapability and his ability to make things happen when things broke down last season.
Brad, we can't talk about Georgia without mentioning the schedule and all the things that are baked into the cake. They'll be preseason number one. They're going for a three-peat. Give us a reason not to believe in the Dogs, because almost everyone does.
Quarterback play would be less than stellar. I mean, we've seen the last couple of years, Stetson Bennett has been just A1 for them. Now you're moving into Carson Beck. I think I said last month on your show, Paul, that Carson Beck's a guy at plus 2,500 right now in the Heisman race that I'd take a flyer on, because based on what I've heard throughout spring practice, he was elite against Georgia's first-team defense. And to be honest with you, judging by that schedule, that's probably the best athletes he's going to face defensively throughout the regular season. So unless Carson Beck is, not the QB1 guy and they got to go to Brock Vandagriff or Gunnar Stockton, I think Georgia is a, Sharpie favorite to win the SEC again. But like I said, you have to have elite quarterback play to win the playoff. In the last couple of years, Georgia's had that with Stetson Bennett.
And Ohio State had it last year, and they nearly did it with Stroud. They've got a lot of great players on their roster, but what do you make out of the Buckeyes? Because for some reason, I want to believe in them.
And you should, but there's pressure on Ryan Day. He's 45-6. Obviously, he came within a couple of yards of beating Georgia last season in the playoff. But back-to-back losses to Michigan has created maybe some undue unrest, so to speak, in Columbus entering this season. They've got a new quarterback as well, Kyle McCord. Basically, all of these preseason contenders have a new starting quarterback this season except Michigan, and McCarthy was able to beat Ohio State last year. So I think Ohio State's defense has to play better. Jim Knowles entering year 2 as the DC on that side of the ball. So Ohio State's a team that, worthy of all the hype right now. But Ryan Day, if he loses for a third straight year to Michigan, you're going to hear some chatter coming out of Columbus.
Oh, I wouldn't even let him out. Let him leave the stadium. I mean, that's it. You lose to Michigan 3 times, you're not on the bus back to Columbus.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus.